And then Matt Walsh picked it up and made a video like attacking me in some very heinous ways.
Naomi, hi, how are you
Hello.
doing?
I am doing pretty great, all things considered. I actually just got engaged yesterday,
Awesome. I
so
saw that
I
on
am,
Twitter.
yeah, yeah, I'm doing very well.
That
How are
is
you?
awesome. I am doing pretty well myself. I've had a very interesting month where one crisis has happened every week, and it's been very
Woo!
consistent. Um, it's been very strange because I've never had to have that like, oh look, the trauma response of my brain immediately coming up with solutions to problems. Was needed as often as it has been, but I did recently get to go to MomoCon and de-stress a little bit there, so that was fun.
Very fun, very fun.
Got to hang out with a bunch of friends there who I've known from YouTube but haven't actually been able to meet in person before, which is
Oh,
always
I would
a
love to do that someday.
that's always a fun part of cons is that like there's always 1 to 3 YouTuber groups that walk around in a pack, and if you're a YouTuber who has at least one friend in one of the groups, you will get absorbed into it. And then
Ooh.
for every con going forward, that's just the group that you're absorbed into, and you just kind of have to walk around with them. You don't have to, but it's an interesting experience. But so there, before we get into why we are having this particular conversation, because that's a hell in a handbasket. Before we get
I'm
into any
so
of
ready to
that,
talk about Lactate Gate.
also, fucking, so people in my audience have decided that they want me to say terrible things. Guys, I'm gonna give you guys a warning. In my end, redeems are turned off when there are collaboration guests on, and y'all know that. Dropping 50,000 channel points is not gonna change that.
How nasty things do they want you to say?
They want me to say terribly cringe anime things, which is normally fine on my own content when there's not a guest with their own time that I have
Ah,
to respect. But we'll get into Red Joker, refund Midnight, and we'll figure that one out later, and refund Axo and whacking Soup, because apparently 3 of you in quick succession decided that this was the right time. But anyways, before we get into why we are here, Naomi, do you want to maybe introduce yourself to my audience for anybody who is not familiar with you or your content?
totally. So I'm Nominal Naomi. I'm a PhD student and kind of a debate cis lefty streamer. I started over on TikTok. These days, I mostly do stuff on Twitch and YouTube. If you search my name, you will find everything I do. There's also a spicy side to my content if that interests you as well. So I do a whole lot, and yeah, would love to have you in the Nom Nom community.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for that. I know that my introduction to you was mostly in the Twitter space because I got banned on TikTok, so I don't actually
Aw.
have a TikTok. I literally was just posting the YouTube shorts from my YouTube channel over to TikTok to double up on content, and apparently
Yeah.
they did not like a VTuber talking about politics that much, and I don't know why. I don't even know what
TikTok does
caused
not
it.
like people talking about politics very much at all, like in general.
Yeah, they try to be very algorithmically neutral is, I think, the best way to put it, even though that's not really the reality of things. But it certainly
Yeah,
seems to be what they try.
it has a lot to do with like advertiser friendly guidelines because for TikTok ads, they are interspersed in between like random videos. So like everything has to be super ad friendly for
Hmm.
advertisers to be on the platform.
Whereas, like on YouTube, an advertiser can go, I'm fine advertising my stuff on this type of channel.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So, you did mention that you used to do more TikTok stuff, but now you do stuff more over on Twitch and YouTube. Do you maybe want to go over the type of things that you cover and why you made that particular content shift?
Yeah, so I was originally discovered on TikTok as I think TikTok is definitely still the best platform to be discovered on. They have really good discoverability features as compared to other platforms. But TikTok has a lot of problems, especially on the creator end. TikTok's monetization is god awful, and yeah, it's got a lot of other problems. But there's actually a pretty lively like debate sphere over on TikTok, and I was able to really hit that niche very well. I had always been interested in political debates, spreading leftism, trying to reach out to people and change their minds. And so I did very well in that sphere, kind of exploded over the course of about a year. And slowly I've been trying to siphon some of that audience over to a Twitch and YouTube following because I have a lot more freedom with this platform over on Twitch and YouTube, where I can do more things like reactions to, Daily Wire, other random conservative drama that happens on Twitter or
Yeah.
YouTube. And yeah, got to interact kind of. I have like a hand in both like the TikTok debate sphere and starting to become oompies with some of the bigger like lefty debate sphere. So it's nice to kind of be like a little bit of a bridge between those communities in some ways, and also having the more freedom has been fantastic.
I think I have a similar having more freedom on platforms position for myself, because YouTube is very, very strict with things like background music and stuff like that. And there's a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
I've actually been training with a vocal coach to learn how to sing better, and doing that type of content is
Ooh.
borderline impossible on YouTube, because I've tried it once and got hit with DMCA's, and I'm like, this is really inconvenient.
I will only sing copyright-free music on stream.
My problem is I'm a Sonic fan, so a lot of the
Tragic.
music that I like singing does have copyright. But so dialing back, now that my audience has a bit of an idea of who you are, if they haven't already learned about you. I learned about you, like I said, on Twitter, seeing a bunch of your shorts that you would put up on there. I think my favorite one that I saw of yours was the one where you popped out of the closet and you're just like, "Hi." It's like, what would you do if this person popped out of your closet?
Oh yeah, that was Ollie London that like tweeted that. It was so funny because he actually cut it short and like cut out one of the best jokes I had at the end, where I was just like, debate me, like. It went even better if you see the full cut, but I use it as like a channel teaser trailer for like all my channels as well.
So for those who are watching on Twitch, you can click on the @NominalNaomi that is in the title. You're obviously not watching on YouTube yet, but there will be an @ for her in the title there that'll take you over to her YouTube channel. That way, the algorithms are happy, because if I link a Twitch in YouTube, YouTube suddenly gets really pissy, because they're very, very strange like that. They're like, these are our competitors. No, just stop competing
We
in
will
the live
boost
stream
all
space.
of the YouTubes and Twitches, so very, very symbiotic.
That said, so now that we've got that out of the way, kind of a foundation of who you are, this is where we have to talk about the more spicy stuff. So
Woo!
and I'm perfectly fine calling it a harassment campaign that was launched against you, primarily because of one of our mutual enemies, Matt Walsh. I guess an enemy is a weird thing to call him, because on the one hand, he's an absolute monster who deserves every single trip and fall he ever finds. Every like particle of skin he gets on a knee scrape is well deserved, but
Cartoon villain.
he is a cartoon villain. He is a Saturday morning cartoon villain with none of the charm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, we end up making money off of him because of the content machine. It's a very, very... It's not quite a cycle of abuse, but it is a toxic cycle.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So what did he do specifically for people who might not know? Because I know that he made a video on you, and there was a particular critique that he had that, when you think about it for more than half a second, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you could articulate that better than I could.
Yeah, I think that in explaining the story, it kind of goes back a little bit further, where it all started when I posted a cute little TikTok clip that was just a clip of a segment I was doing on my Twitch from like a couple days ago, where I announced that I was going to be co-parenting with my fiance, raising our 3 kids together, and that I was going to be a mother, and that I'm so excited for this prospect, and really just sharing the joys of newfound motherhood. And as part of that process, I mentioned that I was working with my doctor to induce lactation, and that it's been going very smoothly, that everything's been working as intended, and that I'm just really excited to be able to like do this, to be able to feed my child, supplement their current formula diet. And like, people over on TikTok initially were like so happy and profoundly positive, and it was the most wonderful thing. And it all went south when a Twitter account, Clown World, posted that TikTok with the caption WTF. And from there, it circulated like all around a bunch of Twitter conservatives. That I had 2 distinct articles from the Post Millennial, like written about me and that TikTok. And then Matt Walsh picked it up and made a video like attacking me in some very heinous ways. And the core like critique of his video came down to, out of the entire body of peer-reviewed literature that we have on trans women lactating, and like the nutrient profile of trans women's breast milk, how it's perfectly safe and normal and within levels of cis women's breast milk, how the hormones that trans women take are not dangerous in breast milk. Most of them aren't even passing the breast milk, and those that are in safe quantities. This has been known by the National Library of Medicine for decades. He cherry-picked one single case study of a trans woman lactating and pointed out that this single case study has limitations, which is true about literally all research done ever. Like, any research study is going to have limitations. Most research studies actually explicitly have like a limitation section. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because like a sample size is naturally going to be indicative of a portion of the population, but it is not 100% representative. It never can be. The only way to get that would be to sample every member of the human population, and then it would be out of date in a week when that number changes.
Yeah, and essentially his argument boiled down to, well, this one case study is bad. And by the way, it's not a bad case study. Like, it's passable, it's peer reviewed, it definitely added to the body of science. But because one study does not meet his criteria of good, then all of the science and literature we have on trans women lactation must be wrong and bad and corrupted by the woke academia. And he even said that peer review doesn't mean anything anymore. That's a direct quote from the video he made on me.
Of course he would say that. Now, for those who don't understand, there's two bits of criteria we have that matter when it comes to doing scientific studies. We have replicatability and we have peer review. Peer review is about your methodology. Is the methodology good? Is it sound? Does it make sense that it would produce the results that we're looking for? And replicatability is, did somebody else repeat your experiment with the same controls or more controls? And did they get similar results to you or not? But, of course, if somebody like Matt's gonna cherry pick that away. Recently, my friend Vice Rhino did a piece with me going over Tim Pool doing something very, very similar, where he tried to say that people who find themselves with more neurotic tendencies tend to find themselves being left-wing authoritarians more often than not. But then when Rhino went into the research, he found that that's true of both right-wing and left-wing authoritarianism. Tim Pool cherry-picked his research so that he could have it say what he wanted to say, and he even cropped the article he posted, because the article he posted was an article he paid to be written on his Timcast website.
Wow.
So this is a very common thing where we can
literally source, I made it up, but like more official.
Actually, fun fact, the people who wrote the study that Tim was going for, they do collab writing for studies with a couple of people that are in the same university as them, and they've only done 5 studies cooperatively, and each one of them is about anti-feminism, anti-veganism, anti-gender studies. Every single one of them that they've done collaboratively is like that, and they are all I forget what the word is called, but when a study has not gone through peer review yet, it hasn't even been subjected to it yet. It's like a pre-site.
Pre-publication.
Pre-publication.
Yeah, pre-printing.
All 5 of them are preprints. So every single time these people collaborate, they're preprinted, and because they're preprinted, that also means that things like disclosing who's funding you is not as necessary from what I understand. But people who haven't ever made a bibliography in their entire lives will see, oh, a study says this, and that's all they care about. I was at the gym, and at the gym they have like all the TVs playing. One has CNN, one has Fox News, one has Lifetime. Each one of them has something for someone. I was looking at the Fox News one, and they just have in the underbar, study finds this about trans people, study this about trans people, but it's always just the title of the study. It's not how many citations does it have. It's not when was it published. There's no qualifying information. It's just there. This is what people like Matt Walsh do. It's kind of agitating.
There's a big ethical debate in the academic community about needing to be more precise and honest with research article titles, because news headlines are always based off of the titles and not the content of research papers.
It's like, what? If I were to pull a bunch of numbers out of my ass, I'd say more than half the people just read the title. After that, maybe a handful read the abstract. And after that,
That's if you're lucky, yeah.
maybe a smaller handful read the conclusion at the end. And then maybe like 2 people read the actual study itself.
Yeah.
I have a I have a video that I'm going to be doing about trans people in sports, going over a lot of the research in that. And then I'm also going to have Brianna Wu helping me with some of the particulars at the end of that video as well, because it's
Cool.
it's amazing how many people don't actually look into this,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to have opinions on it. So Matt Walsh himself does this disingenuous thing. It's a thing that we see all the fucking time. So what was the fallout from that? Because whenever somebody like Matt, who's got a huge platform, picks up something like this and runs with it, there's always going to be fallout from this. I had fallout when Eric July decided to get a hold of clips of one of my videos, and I got a bunch of people calling me a pedo in my comment section because I was like, puberty blockers are good, actually. So how did that all shake out for you?
Yeah. The harassment campaign certainly did not start with Matt Walsh. It definitely started back with Clown World, but by the time that Matt Walsh made a segment, by the Tim Pool also made a segment about me, and the hashtag LactateGate, and it just exploded the harassment campaign to a horrible, horrible point where I was getting death threats in my DMs, like death threats even on just my Twitter timeline. People were saying that if they ever saw me in person, they would attack me. There was...
You actually sent me some screenshots about that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull up some of those right now?
Go for it. Yeah, we can definitely talk about those. That one was probably the most intense, like, death threat that I kept around. I deleted so many of them because I was like, I just don't want these to exist. And
yeah, you don't want to look at them
every time
you don't want to look at them every time you open your phone.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's not healthy. But this one, it says, if I ever see you in person, I'm attacking you. What kind of a sickfoot uses male lactation to breastfeed a child? I'm gonna cut off there before I get to the next bit. For those who aren't aware, the human body, while we may be sexually dimorphic, the human body is made up of all of the same component parts. So your gonads in a cis man are also gonads in a cis woman. It's just they turn into ovaries in one and testes in another. Penises and clitorises are also formed from the same thing. Your bodies are not as different as you want to believe.
Yeah.
So when somebody goes like, male lactation, well, yeah, I wonder what kind of milk comes out of that lactation. Probably the same kind of milk that comes out of any other lactation from a human being.
Because humans are mammals, and that's actually basic biology.
Yeah, we are mammalian. We have memories. Therefore, the last part here, and I guess content warning for this whole thing is going to talk about a giant harassment campaign. So just consider the whole video a content warning.
That's fair. That's fair.
But the only thing keeping me from slaughtering you in cold blood are the laws of this land. If they did not exist, I guarantee you I would throw you in a wood chipper or cut your fucking head off.
Yeah.
Oh boy, So, while I have had people threaten me, I have not necessarily had it done in that much detail. Usually they are much more vague about it when it comes to me. So, and you said that this is indicative of a smorgasbord of harassment threats that were sent to you.
Oh yeah, that was just like one screenshot of a particularly bad one that I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna screenshot that to keep around and then block, delete, move on.
Yeah.
In addition to like the targeted harassment, there was a case where this crazy guy on Twitter tried to dox me, was like trying to investigate where I live, and ended up calling Child Protective Services.
Was that the one, Chumbo?
That's the Chumbo guy, yeah.
Yep, I got that one up here.
He called Child Protective Services in the state that he thought I lived in, and like reported that I was a trans woman breastfeeding my child, like filing a false police report essentially. And the Child Protective Services people told him, well, unless her doctor has any concerns about malnutrition, there's literally no case here, because like breastfeeding is not a crime. And he went on this strange rant about how like he thought that like the Child Protective Services agent was like a good-hearted person who was being controlled by some like woke supervisor behind them that like told him they couldn't do anything about it. It was just completely delusionally bigoted.
They just go like, I am confident that Hold on, I got to do this in the voice. So when I voice over a bigot on my channel, I always give them the Barney the Dinosaur voice.
Let's go.
Because it's much more accurate. So I'm gonna do it from the beginning. But Chumbo here for my audio-only listeners. I have submitted a detailed report about Naomi's actions to the blank Department of Child and Family Services. I will never stop pursuing justice for this child in blank. Now is the time to make it clear using transgenderism as a cover for child abuse will not be tolerated. Things somebody who's definitely stable has said.
Exactly, yep.
I am confident that Naomi's exact location in blank will be found. But if anyone has any additional information that can speed up this process, please come forward, because every moment counts when a child is in the hands of an abuser. This person is literally not just trying to dox you themselves, they're calling for a campaign of people to dox you.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And these are the ones that think that they're on the quote, right side of history? They're the ones that think that they're doing okay? Oh my gosh. It's insane not only to have to deal with that, but it's insane that once upon a time, this type of malnutrition of the brain was found mostly on Poll and 4chan. We didn't see this as much in the more public spaces of the internet until, I want to say, the last few years, where it became a lot more normalized. Last few years, meaning, for the most part, post-Trump's campaign.
For sure.
The internet's been around for a while. So what else do we have here to go over? Because there's a lot more that they said here. They showed their report.
There was also a lot of, like, misinformation, where there was people claiming that I had, like, pictures of my baby on my OnlyFans.
Yep.
Which is just factually untrue, and people, like, actually mass false reported my OnlyFans, and it got taken down for, like, a few days while they were doing an investigation, and found that, oh yeah, she's not violating our rules. But, like, even just, like, getting it taken down for a couple of days was, like, me just being punished for them lying.
It's a weird scenario, too, though, to be, like, let's pretend for a moment. Even in the world where they're correct, that means that they had to go to a trans person's OnlyFans, a trans person that they apparently hate, think is awful, would say is any demeaning word in the world. They had to go to that trans person's OnlyFans at some point in order to make the claim. Now, granted, the claim was wrong, but it's insane to me that that would happen. I mean, I say it's insane to me. However, at the same time, we all know that in red states, the likelihood that trans porn will be looked at is a lot higher than in blue states, and it's a very strange phenomenon. Also,
I don't think it's a strange phenomenon at all. It's just the brain fetishizes bigotry. Like, it's one of the coping mechanisms that people gravitate towards for bigotry. And I did gain like over 100 OnlyFans subscribers from this drama. So I know that there's at least some conservatives who are enjoying my transgender porn.
It's kind of sad. The statement has been made a few times, so I'm more co-opting this statement. But the idea that you would illegalize trans bodies while fetishizing and fapping to them, it speaks to a particular brand of brain rot.
That's how I know that they view me as a woman.
Well, no, see, I actually can offer a little pushback on that. Maybe not, because CPAC, whenever CPAC is in town, gay prostitutes make a lot more money.
True.
It might be that they see it as like a different style of forbidden fruit. I'm not saying that's better at all by any means. But
the argument is that a woman is what a conservative wants to jack off to but not give rights. And so
fair enough.
Maybe gay men are women too. We'll see.
We all start as women in the womb. So there we are. Jesus. So with this particular campaign, of course, there was the DMs that were sent to you, there was the Child Protective Services thing that happened, there was the OnlyFans debacle that happened. So here's where, before we get into Matt Walsh's tweets, because he had a couple tweets to throw at you as well, this is where I think maybe pausing for just a second and instead of just glancing over something that we've said, we should maybe qualify it a little more. When I mentioned that we were going to be doing a collaboration together talking about this, there were a couple people in my audience that said, hey, I'd be interested to see how the science behind this works, because they've never known about it. And I mean, that might speak to some of the issues we have in education in the States in general now. But so do you maybe want to go over some of that when it comes to not only lactation, because that's obviously what started all of this, but also just some of the ways in which our bodies are infinitely more similar than they are different, and how that can be used?
Totally. So I guess just starting with the process behind how this works is that as a mammalian species, human beings, whether we are born assigned male or female, intersex at birth, whatever, we have mammary glands, milk ducts, breast tissue, essentially all of the organs which are required to lactate. However, the reason why not everybody lactates is because lactation is a hormonal process. So it's actually hormones which cause sexual differentiation, both in the womb and during puberty. So it's like if your body is washed with estrogen, you're going to develop in the female direction. If your body's washed with testosterone, you're going to develop in the male direction. There's a couple other hormones and genes which play factors in that too, but the main idea is that it's these hormone washes that cause that. And there is some further breast development that occurs during estrogen-dominant puberty, particularly by estrogen and progesterone, which will result in the development of the pseudolactational tissues, which help to facilitate lactation, although they're not required. They just make it easier and more voluminous, essentially. But the main hormone that's involved in lactation is a hormone called prolactin. And we have medicines these days that can raise your prolactin levels. And essentially, if you're trying to achieve optimal lactation, what you're going to do is you just hormonally mimic pregnancy and then birth. And so as a trans woman, what they'll do is they'll raise your estrogen and progesterone and prolactin levels really high, which is what happens during pregnancy.
I imagine they do the same thing for cis women who were having trouble too.
Yeah,
it's the exact same thing.
This is how the protocol was first developed, was for cis women who were like adopting children and wanted to lactate, but they didn't give birth. And so you raise all these hormones really high, then after having them really high for a little bit, you drop them significantly, which is what happens when you actually give birth.
Oh, so you're just literally, you're simulating all the mechanics at that point.
Exactly, yeah. We can use these hormone on-off switches to hormonally emulate pregnancy, and the body literally thinks, oh, I'm supposed to start lactating, and your body does, and you can start breast pumping when you do this, and you will start making milk.
Fair enough. It also probably goes, so I've made mention before when talking with friends about this scenario before we did our collaboration that male lactation, as in cis men lactation, is also a thing that is, while not as common, it's a thing that can be induced. So this is basically just going, hey, what we're looking for is not a way to make this happen. This can happen in a variety of ways. What we're looking for is ways to increase the volume at which milk is produced so that there's enough nutrient-dense milk that is made for a child, basically.
Exactly, yeah. At kind of like the easiest level, enough of just like breast pumping in general does have an effect on prolactin levels and is enough for even cis men to start lactating a little bit in most cases. There's even some tribal societies that have historically like actually had cis men who participated in breastfeeding and lactation and feeding children. I know a modern day example is the Aka tribe over in Africa, where they actually still have this very common practice of male breastfeeding in their society. They have a lot more gender equal views on child rearing, which I think is fascinating and just goes to show how like what we think of as normal right here is not the normal around the world. Like we have all of this different ways of life, and like it's cool. It's cool.
It kind of reminds me of so I did a video ages ago as a study into Ugandan culture before colonialization, and found that they had a lot of ideas about gender that were closer to what we understand in more lefty circles as gender now. They had genders that were set up as like, hey, this is the male who is also the child rearer, so they have more social rules about them that are closer to what we would consider a woman who's a mother. They had a lot of stuff like that where like they didn't just have the dimorphic gender dichotomy, they had a lot of them. And then of course, Britain comes in and does its thing, and now we're dealing with Uganda trying to illegalize being gay. there are people, especially on the right, who look at stuff like that. Because I know Ted Cruz has been tweeting about this recently, saying that, like, no, this is a backwards culture doing backwards things. And we're like, not actually. This is a culture that was influenced by us at one point, because, you know, we came from Britain too. Like, this is a culture that was influenced by us in large part, and now this is the fallout from that. That's what's happening, Ted.
Yeah, if you want to go like all the way back, what anthropologists have learned about the earliest human societies from available like cave paintings and everything that we have as anthropological evidence is that they were overwhelmingly very egalitarian, very queer normative, and just like very much like supportive of different peoples and styles and ways of living. And hey, power to them. I think it's awesome that they could live in such a harmonic, symbiotic way with each other.
Yeah, it's certainly something that we could learn from.
Yeah.
Though, that does bring us back on track to, with what happened, there was a series of tweets from Matt Walsh that I know I want to go over before we go forward with any other questions. So, the first one you sent to me was this one here, where Matt said, and granted, when I'm saying he here, it's because that's a quote from Matt. But
practical misgendering, let's
go. Saying, like, he is poisoning the child with discharge laced with synthetic hormones in order to satisfy his fetish. Just society would throw men like this in prison. Well, one, obviously, Matt, she. Secondly, very, 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 very simply, we already went over, this is the same thing that is done with cis women.
Yep.
It's how this was developed. So it's insane to, granted, I keep saying it's insane to me, but it's Matt Walsh. We know he's got a particular bent here. This is why when I talk about puberty blockers on my channel, I try to point out, like, hey, we developed this for cis kids who had early onset breast cancer to buy them time for us to do things about the breast cancer because the puberty blockers starve the cancer of their food. It just so happens that it also works for other things as well. So there was that one, and then you sent me another one from Matt that said, like I said, it's a fetish. We have a radically reorganized society. We have radically reorganized society for these people just to accommodate their fetish. That's what so much of this is about. They get a sexual thrill out of forcing everyone to play along. I feel like that's projection.
Yeah, that's absolutely projection. I mean, if you, like, see somebody breastfeeding or talking about inducing lactation, and you see that as like a sexual fetish thing, like you're the one who's sexualizing breastfeeding, not me. And as somebody who has to like pump 3 times a day at least, and like it becomes like just a routine chore that's very effortful, and that I have to keep up with constantly, and take medication that like makes my body do weird things. And so, like, doing this just for like sexual reasons just doesn't make any sense, because I just experience it as like a day-to-day life bodily function that is just normal and just routine at this point.
Which is, again, that's what cis women would do in the first place anyway.
Exactly.
That's like when somebody's going, why would you put yourself through that when you could just get formula? Okay, well, why would cis women do it then? It's the same thing. It's just wanting to nutritionally supplement your child. Not to mention, there's a whole argument that needs to be had when it comes to how ethical certain formula companies are, like Nestle specifically.
Oh yeah.
They're a sugar company that has a bent on getting people hooked on sugar because that's what they produce. They also produce baby formula laced with a lot of sugar, and we've done studies that show that by giving babies and young children high doses of sugar early, they become hooked on it later in life. I don't know. Why would we want to lower the amount of formula that's used in breastfeed when possible? Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and that's not even to mention like the price gouging and other market manipulation, which formula companies have.
Oh, yeah.
Like there is a paper trail of this happening, especially in poorer countries that can't afford to like lobby and deal with these companies, where they have formula shortages already, and they're kind of at the whims of these evil corporations.
It's sad, because what tends to happen here is a lot of people don't take the time to research this stuff, but they are willing to hit fire on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
Which leads to my next question. How often does stuff like this happen to you? Not just like here recently with the articles from the Post Millennial and Walsh and everything else, but just like how often have you had to deal with this as a content creator?
I would say that at like a mild level, it is a constant of dealing as a content creator, especially as a trans content creator, where there's always some at least mild level of death threats, harassment, other just transphobia that ends up in my inboxes and my replies all the time at like a base level. But particularly whenever I have something that like pops off, and especially when it pops off within conservative circles, then it just ramps up to the most extreme level possible. This is definitely the most intensive harassment campaign I've ever received, but yeah, it's definitely a constant base level, and it definitely ramps up depending on how much my content's being viewed at, just in general.
Yeah, I know when this all started ramping up at first, there's a friend group that I'm a part of that had this, that were talking about this as soon as this happened, and I just did my usual knee-jerk reaction is to go like, okay, what can I do? What can I do to help? And actually, Cherry, Xander Hall's editor, mentioned like maybe you should reach out to Naomi and ask that question. That seems like a better path forward. And that's when I messaged you, and I'm like, hey, so I see this bad shit is happening. What can I do? And that led us to where we are now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that talking about this topic more is a very good one to talk about, especially because like it's a case where like the transphobes are literally just wrong about biology. And if somebody truly approached this conversation in good faith, like I put forth an entire research document summarizing the peer-reviewed literature on lactation in trans women that's publicly available. People can just like find my research master doc. It's available on my link tree. If you Google my name, you'll be able to find this. And this is like a free educational resource that, you know, really goes to show how much closer like people are in terms of being male or female. And it also goes to show how trans people really can like change certain aspects of their biology and like actually factually do this function, which we often regard as being a biologically female function. And it makes a really strong argument about like how biologically real a transsexual body is, like my own.
There's so there's a wealth of resources on this that I would love to throw at people who are new to these kind of topics, who may not know what to go. I think that personally, if I were to shout one other creator out, I think Forrest Valkai's video, Sex and Sensibility, is probably one of the best like foundational spots. Like if you're starting anywhere, start there. Any conversation about social justice, any conversation about anecdotal experiences, all of that basically can just sit in a wash bucket. That can be handled after you've watched that video and going, oh, all of this exists. But after that,
Forrest is awesome. He does great work, and that's a
really
fantastic one.
I know the other two are conglomerations of documentation on what we know about trans people. Vosh has, of course, the giant master list that he updates frequently. And then I mentioned my friend Vice Rhino. Vice Rhino has his own master list on trans documentation that tends to have more recent documentation than some of the stuff in Vosh's. But using all of it together, I've
got my own as well. So there's a lot circulating around now. It's great.
I think building more and more of these databases is good because, again, people who did not grow up with the opportunities of getting, you know, post-secondary education, like myself, I didn't. I finished high school and then went into workforce and then had to learn everything autodidactically from there. So people who've never sat down and assembled a bibliography, figured out how to cite their sources properly, people who've never developed those habits sometimes don't even know how to find research that is good. They'll look at a news article on something that has, you know, 0 links in it whatsoever and is just an op-ed piece, and they'll be like, look, I found a source. I found a thing here. It definitely... I did work, guys. So what I will ask of you before we go on with any more questions is your source document. If you would be okay with linking that to me so I can put it in the description of this video, so anybody who
totally
would like to educate themselves further can.
I can do that right now so that I don't forget about it. Let me do that.
Awesome. ADHD brain prevents me from doing things half the time.
Exactly.
I have
That's the link, and sent to you on Discord.
Excellent. Now, I have a notepad app on my phone, and it's the only way I get anything done 9 times out of 10.
Oh yeah,
And
I
I
relate that experience.
and I have a production line Discord where everything that I'm planning on doing all gets put in there. So if I forget something, my art team can pile drive on me. Like when I went to MomoCon and forgot I had a meeting with my channel manager, and all of them said, "Wow, you did exactly what we thought you were going to do. You fucking forgot you had a meeting that you paid for." So
Nice.
but so we've talked a lot about how often this happens and the types of ways you got harassed and get harassed and where this starts, but that kind of eliminates one important element of this. How did that affect you? How do you react to this?
Yeah, I think that I've seen other people in similar positions as mine, and I think that I'm very lucky in the amount of like mental capacity I have for dealing with hate and vitriol, but it is extremely emotionally taxing. I was at just like such an elevated state of stress and anxiety, and if I didn't have the amazing support system that I do of my friends and my fiance and everybody on my side, I absolutely would have cracked pretty hard. Like it is a lot to be able to refresh Twitter instantly and see new attacks, death threats, misgendering, harassment against you whenever you want. Like I could literally like refresh it seconds and I would see new comments when it was at its worst. Like that is an insane potential for mental self-harm to have.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I had my partner with me to especially like help me maintain a healthy relationship with Twitter in while this all was going down. And I think I did the best I can to channel negative attention into positive attention towards my account, but whew, that was really mentally taxing. And if I wasn't,
so.
Oh yeah, it could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah, I know when I mentioned when Eric July did his video on me, that was, he's got like a 500K YouTube channel. When that happened, I dealt with the harassment for maybe a week. Like it was a wave. It happened, it crested, and then it died off, and I haven't seen much except for like a couple of his sycophants every now and again.
Yeah,
so
that's where I'm at right now.
I've got that, that taste, and I've had it before, but that was one of the larger instances of that. So I've got that taste of it happening, but not constant. I can imagine through proxy what it's like to deal with it constantly. And honestly, it's just phenomenal that you are able to get through that and have a more positive relationship with that type of content being made about you, because it's very easy for stuff like this to sink you. It is incredibly easy for you to. Like I have a couple trans friends of mine in real life, and when some of them can't actually watch my channel that often because I'm covering stuff that has happened in Florida or happened in Texas, or like a new bill will pass in Tennessee that makes it that much harder to get HRT in this state or that. And they go like, I can't watch your channel as much as I want to because this stuff, it's way too close to home and it's constant. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm insulated from this. I'm cis. Like, I'm a cishet white guy. I've got a straight flush of privileges that just let me not worry about this as much, but it's still stuff that I talk about and cover because there's people I care about for it. So it's astounding to me that you're able to take all of that on the cheek, basically.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's definitely something that like the amount of mental capacity that people will have to handle that is going to vary drastically from person to person. And I think that I'm very lucky that I can use my capacity to do as much good as I can, but I've had trans people tell me that like it's very hard for them to watch my own content because of how depressing it can be to like fight through all this all the time. But
yeah,
I've also had other trans people to like, this has really helped me like better understand myself and the science behind this, and be able to better articulate who I am to the people around me. And so yeah, it's definitely like, consume your content responsibly, because this applies to creators and viewers, but definitely you need to have a good relationship with how you consume content.
Yeah, if you don't, like I said, this stuff will sink you. It really will. The world is becoming a darker place, but that does not mean that we should not continue doing what we do.
Yeah.
So, with everything going forward, what kind of strategies do you think you're going to employ to react to stuff like this going forward? Obviously, there's the default, turn them into content. Like, take the harassment they're throwing at you and turn it on its head, make money off of it. Like, that's the default. But what things are you also doing to make sure that you have a healthy relationship with all of this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that especially my fiance had been helping me with was having a more intentional relationship with like engagement on Twitter, where it's like I'm setting aside like a certain amount of time to be able to check things, find what's going on, make sure I'm staying safe, and do a couple responses, things that I've been thinking about. Just like if you don't have that very intentional relationship, especially with platforms like Twitter and TikTok, it can be very easy to fall down very dark rabbit holes and just lose track of everything that's going on in those dark rabbit holes. Oh yeah. And so being more intentional with that has helped me a lot, and it's something that I don't think I'm perfect at and that I want to keep doing better at. But in addition, yeah, and having that intentionality is going to be very good based off of whatever your mental capacity might be, because when you know that and you can be intentional with that, you can just do the best you can to ride out the wave and channel into as much positive as you can.
There's certainly a limit we all end up hitting with that, unfortunately. We're human. But it is good to have those steps in place, so you know that when you are hopping on a platform that is a toxic cesspool that is not great for your mental health, you're guaranteeing that, okay, in the cost-benefit analysis here, you're coming out on the positive end. So, I want to know a little bit more about your journey on TikTok and your transition over to YouTube, because with all of these harassment campaigns, that certainly affected your numbers a lot. It sounds cruel to say this, but as a content creator, controversy does in fact lead to viewership for a time.
Absolutely.
For most people. So how has that journey been? And does anybody in your real life circles know about that journey, or is it strictly your online circles?
Yeah, so I would say that like my closest internet like friend group and my fiance are very aware of what I do online. But other than that, most of my like IRL acquaintances or my coworkers when I'm doing like my PhD stuff, they're unaware of my online presence. But having like, oh gosh, what was I gonna say? I just lost it. It was what was the question again? So sorry.
So it was a multi-layered question, to be fair. So I apologize.
I need
for
the
that.
second layer.
But it was how has your content journey been switching platforms with the harassment campaign affecting your numbers, and how many people in your real life know about this? What's the line between your real life and your online life here for you?
Yeah. Okay, so as far as like growth, I was able to channel a significant amount of growth. I've gained a couple thousand subscribers over on YouTube. I'm currently sitting at just about 9K, really close to the 10K, which is super exciting. I think that I was probably somewhere around like 7K at the start of this drama. My YouTube really exploded when I debated this insane right-wing pick-me trans girl from TikTok, and
is it the one you were covering before we went live?
Yeah,
together?
it was Kelly. That was the debate that I did with her was the one where she just like decided to defend slavery out of nowhere, which was absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Yeah, that's a whole different drama. That was my big YouTube drama. But on Twitter, I doubled in size over #LactateGate, and I was also able to channel that into significant gains over on YouTube and Twitch. Not so much over on the TikTok side of things, which is okay. I definitely feel a lot more connected to the Twitch and YouTube side of things these days. I think that I enjoy content over there quite a bit more. And yeah, as far as like kind of where that line in my personal life is, it's definitely a very intimate line where if I have a relationship with someone where I definitely have that emotional connection, like my close friends, my partner, my siblings, it's definitely a really big part of, how I describe my existence to them. It's definitely another job of mine.
Yeah.
Yet for people that are more just like acquaintances at my research job or anybody else, it's just nothing. And so finding out where that line exists has also been very interesting. And knowing that like my friends also kind of watch my content sometimes, and that's also a very interesting relationship to have with friends and a fiance who watches my content.
I can imagine that. I say I can imagine that. I don't have to imagine that. It's the same thing. I've been doing the content creation thing for like 6 years now, and it's
Mhm.
there's definitely a lot of fun conversations that happen with your IRL friends sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, especially like in my case, I'm cis white guy who has a big tittied Neko girl VTuber avatar as my persona online, which there are some people who have said some very awkward things to me in real life about that, and I'm just
Oh,
like,
that's so funny.
just go buy the body pillow and leave me alone.
There you go. There you go.
But so
And now I will forever be known as the milking mommy.
you always mommy milkers will never be disassociated with your name.
True.
Forever.
Factual.
Though I guess if you have a side content of adult stuff you do as well, that's not the worst moniker to have in those circles.
I actually don't make lactation content, which is like really funny that people would say that like the lactation stuff is a fetish when I don't even make lactation content.
Well, they would
one of the
have
reasons
to
why
have
people
looked at your OnlyFans for that, and they
Exactly,
would
yeah,
never
no.
admit to that.
I think the reason why they tried to smear me as some like lactation fetishist is because like I'm an autistic girl who likes cows, and like I've done some like cute photo sets in like cow PJs. Like I have cow plushies. I just like cows. That's really it. And also like even if somebody does have like a lactation kink, like lactation kink sex workers are typically mothers who breastfeed their kids, and they don't sexualize breastfeeding their kids. Like it's not even an own if that were the case.
9 times out of 10, it's only an own in conservative circles, because within those circles, there's already a stigma against sex work. There's already a stigma against being trans. Like, there's layers of stigmas that you accept by being in those circles, and the joke only lands if you accept every one of those layers of stigmatization. Because I know when you were going over one of Kelly's videos before we started the stream today, she was talking about how, like, oh, well, I didn't realize that all of the cool friends that I thought I was getting, I thought I was going to be able to get a show on the Daily Wire, like my hero Candace Owens. And she started realizing, like, oh, wait a minute, all of these people actually hate my guts. I don't like these people that all hate my guts. I'm like, yeah, right now, to be accepted into the GOP safe spaces, there's a lot of these assumptions about other minority groups that you have to take, and if you don't want to take those on the chin, why the fuck are you trying to get in those spaces?
Definitely. There was a really funny tweet she made where she said that she thinks God made her trans so that she wouldn't have been a full-on conservative woman.
Well, somebody needs to notify Blair White.
Blatantly admitting that if something doesn't personally affect her, she will be bigoted about it.
Yeah, it's like when people say, like, oh, well, I'm happy that I'm like, actually, no, I don't even need to pull up an example. The person who said, like, hey, the laws of the land prevent me from attacking you.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, so you're just admitting you're a bad person? That's what you're doing now. Congratulations. The end of Evangelion, it was for you. It was for you alone. So, with all of that, I know asking people to check out the different ways in which this harassment occurred, it's a bit mean-spirited, but at the same time, you did a video on Matt Walsh's video that he did on you. So, are there any other things besides that video that people should maybe check out to get a scope of this? If they wanted to go through all of this campaign on their own time and see what happened now that they've heard your story, how would they go about that?
So the Matt Walsh response video is actually coming out tomorrow on like my main YouTube channel. But I have a couple other videos. There was one that I did explaining like what happened and the whole trans motherhood experience at the very start of like the whole drama, when it was just the first post-millennial article that came out. And then afterwards, I had a second video where I debated this other pick-me trans girl on Twitter about like the lactation discourse and just
Why are there
completely
so many of
demolished
them?
her. There's way too many, way too many. And also at the end of that video, I went through and like gave a quick like summary of, you know, the lactation and trans women peer-reviewed research we have section of my research doc. So those are both there if you want to check those out right now. And coming tomorrow to a YouTube near you, the response to Matt Walsh. My editor's
Excellent.
just working on finishing getting that out.
I think for this video, I'm probably going to just do a very hasty edit of it on my own. I've sent 15 videos to my editor already. I don't want to send him an hour-long one as well.
That's fair.
So, so this video will probably be coming out tomorrow. So if you're watching this on YouTube, when Naomi says the video's coming out tomorrow, it probably actually means coming out today.
Success.
Probably because of the time. This is the way time machines work. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules, but neither does Back to the Future. Dragon Ball Z does.
The Twitch to YouTube pipeline is a time machine.
It really is. I've had I don't know if you've ever done a subathon before on Twitch, but when I've done them, there's if you know what a subathon is.
I do not.
Okay,
Inform me.
so oh boy, so a subathon is when you do a stream that lasts more than 24 hours. Sometimes they can last 18,
that's crazy.
18 days. Because I've had one that lasted 18 days. But the rules are basically when you go live with a base timer. Mine is usually 12 hours. And then every time somebody subscribes to your channel or sends in a donation to like a PayPal or coffee, it raises the time that you're on the stream. For me, it's usually 1 sub equals 5 minutes. And then suddenly I get stuck here for, 2 to 3 weeks at a time, not being able to leave my house for long periods of time.
How do you sleep during like a subathon?
So you sleep during you sleep during it while the timer runs down.
Okay.
Some streamers will have rules like the timer can't hit 0 while you're asleep because it's very hard for you to facilitate keeping that timer running otherwise. Some streamers do not have a rule like that. It depends on who you are. I think the record was like 34 days long. And I think it was Ludwig, I want to say, and he had a camera like trained at him, so when he went to sleep, he just streamed himself sleeping.
Just switch to the sleep cam?
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
So I'll do my regular content while doing a subathon. So when you mentioned the Twitch to YouTube pipeline is a time machine, sometimes somebody will go like, "Oh my God, is Suris in a subathon?" And they'll see a video up and it's like, "No, that ended 3 days ago." Oh, but it still shows 72 hours on the timer. Like, yeah, that video was recorded really early into the subathon.
Oh, that's funny.
It just came out really late because I have to backlog so much stuff. So as we are hitting the hour mark, as we are hitting near the end of our time together, is there anything that you would like to say to my audience that maybe could be helpful in these situations, maybe could help them in case they encounter something like this as well? Or if they want to learn more, want to check out your channel, any information at all, the floor is yours.
Yes. Definitely, if you're interested in learning more about this situation, other just like science behind trans topics, trans debates, lefty politics, definitely check out my content. Would love to have you in the Nom Nom community. And yeah, as far as like any other kind of advice, just like establishing a good mental health relationship with content creation, with engagement on platforms, especially like Twitter, and with the types of content you consume and the types of communities that you're involving yourself in is something that's really awesome to do. And I think that people being more intentional about their time and engagement on social media would help to alleviate a lot of the terminally online problems that people tend to have. Go touch grass. I love grass. There are wonderful community events that so many people just don't know about that exist, and we could do much better with like community events in general, but you'd be surprised what already exists out there, and have a fun time.
I push my audience to get into Magic the Gathering for this very
reason.
reason.
I'm a big Magic player. Let's go.
So I guess I'll take this opportunity then to say, when I do Magic the Gathering collaboration streams with other streamers, would you like an invitation to those when those go live?
I am absolutely interested in that. I definitely want to make more Magic content over on Twitch and whatnot, because that sounds fun. I mostly play in paper at my local game store. I'm a big competitive Modern player.
What do you play in Modern?
I'm currently playing a Shadowless Death Shadow deck, so it's basically
Okay.
like blue-red Breach, but I get to play some nice Grixis cards with like Drown in the Lock, Thoughtseize. I'm also playing Kolaghan's Command because I'm a simp for Kolaghan's Command.
I'm a Naya Hardened Scales player.
Oh,
I
nice,
love.
nice.
I grew up with Affinity as a kid. That was what was in Standard when I got into Magic. So playing Modern now,
Yeah.
I have I have an Affinity Neoform deck that goes into Archon of Cruelty as its Neoform target.
Disgusting. I love it.
And then I have the Hardened Scales deck, which, Arcbound Ravager does its thing. It goes burr.
Hmm.
Everybody who's fought Hardened Scales know what it's like to look at a board and like, there's 3 creatures there. They can't kill me. Yes, they can.
Oh yeah.
I have Oscillus in the background. They can kill you. But then I have a homebrew deck as a secondary one. That is an Is It Bogles deck.
Interesting.
It's Bogles with an Is It control package, but with a mutate package on top. So you mutate Lord Drakus onto the Bogles as a budget version of Snapcaster Mage, so that you can get things
Okay.
like your Lightning Bolt, your Expressive Iteration. You can get those back and just you out advantage your opponent.
Interesting. Yeah, Bogles has really fallen off so much because there's so many new ways to circumvent Bogles with like Dress Down and even Shadow Spear. Like the extra text on Shadow Spear removes
Oh yeah,
hexproof and indestructible from creatures,
I
which is
again
like pretty crazy.
Hardened Scales player. I know Shadow Spear like the back of my hand. My Urza Saga grabs that every time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Stoff says, Suris, tell her about the Dina binder. Okay, so there's a project I'm working on. I have a 540 slot binder that I'm filling with all of the foiled Dina Soul Steepers from the recent set as I can. There's
Ooh,
400 Dina Soul Steepers in there so far.
Steepin'.
But no, modern is a format I love. I also have competitive Pioneer, and
Nice.
I've got about 25 casual power level commander decks that I play as well.
That's super fun. That's super fun.
So when we do content on here, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be commander, because that's the easiest one to just like grab a bunch of people, be like, hey, we're going to do stuff with 4 of us. That ends up being commander. But I definitely would want to play you in modern sometime if you want to do a spell table one-on-one game.
I will totally play you in Modern, absolutely.
Okay. Then that's something we'll need to plan for the future. Naomi, I want to thank you immensely for hopping on here, talking about your experiences, giving the research that you've done into this, and not only throwing that out for people in your community and with the content that you do, but also giving that information to my community. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it was my pleasure. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
You have a lovely rest of your stream.
I will. Everybody who's on my stream, please click on Naomi's name in the title. Head over to her channel, give her a follow, subscribe over there if you want to support her and her work financially. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there are links that will be in the description as well that will take you to all those places too. So please do us a giant favor and do that. And Naomi, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Bye.